Our next committee of the day is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Bolden, and Lombardo. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to call the public service meeting to order, please. All members are present. We did host a meeting 2 weeks ago. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion, a second for the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We have 4 new pieces in front of us today, and if it's all right, Sarah, could you read in the first piece, please?
Sure. The first item in public service is item number 14, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the installation of 2 replacement substation transformers at the water reclamation facility and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris Luddle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this piece of legislation will allow us to bid the installation of the 2 new substation transformers that were purchased. This council passed legislation previously this year to purchase 2 new transformers. At WRF, we have 3 substation transformers, 69,000 volts. So last year in 2023, we purchased and installed one of those 3, and this will allow us to replace the other 2. Those transformers are well over 30 years old, so this will continue with our resiliency at the wastewater plant. This takes a high voltage contractor, but we will be bidding this process. We do have probably 3 or 4 contractors here in the city that have the capacity to do this, but basically this allows us to bid and award this installation. That's what this piece of legislation will allow us to do.
Thank you, Chris. Sounds great. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? I don't see anyone in there. Anyone online? All right. Chris, is consent agenda okay on this one?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Committee?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next piece, please, Sarah.
Item number 15 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Burgess and Nyepel, Inc. for the implementation of the CSO Program Management Team Operations Maintenance Project on a 5-year cycle and declaring an emergency.
Well,
thank you, Sarah. Chris, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this is our CMOM program. 2024 was the end of our 3rd cycle, which is every 5 years we must TV and clean every mile of our sanitary and combination sewers. So this contract or this legislation will allow us to finish up the 24 program, and then it will allow us to start on the next cycle, which would be our 4th cycle, which is 2025, and then the following 4 years. We try to front load the first year of the contract to try to get as many miles cleaned and TV'd. So at the end of the 5-year cycle, we're not stuck just in case if there's a capacity issue with contractors. So we do part of this in-house with our own staff, but the biggest part of it is done by contractors, which is 3 contractors that are bid out. Burgess and Nyepel has managed this contract for us since the consent decree was signed. One thing I would like to emphasize is since we've been doing this program, our calls have drastically dropped, whether they're own trouble, meaning there's a problem in the sewer system of our residents. But when we talk about overflows in 2010 and 11, we were averaging about 26 untreated overflows, where there was a manhole surcharging or just an untreated overflow due to the sewer system. We have reduced that to now 6 a year or less, which has really proven that this has been a fantastic program. So we are looking at it after this cycle to go back and possibly do an amendment on our larger pipes, our larger systems, because we're finding that we don't need to do the amount of cleaning we did when we started this 15 years ago. So we've done a tremendous amount of lining, and as I could obviously attest, down at our plant, when we see these high flows, in a mild rain, we're not seeing that anymore, because we've taken the infiltration out of the system by lining these pipes or these sewers. So this is something we're mandated to do, and we'll continue to do it, but it's been a very successful program.
Thank you, Chris. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? All right. Anyone else online with us or in council chambers? Okay, I don't see anyone. Chris, is consent okay on this one?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Committee?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Moving on to the next one, Sarah, if you could, please.
Item number 16 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids with an engineering consulting firm or firms for the supplemental engineering services required for the 2025 Capital Investment and Community Development Program and the 2025 operating budget, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Chris Luddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this legislation is for a lot of our supplemental services that engineering performs. We did have a change recently where we would request that engineering firms would submit their qualifications, and then we would negotiate on price or their availability. Just last year, we instituted a new process where we are advertising all our jobs on Bonfire, and then these engineering firms that have registered with us, and we've seen that number go up over the last year, where they submit not only their qualifications, their availability, but also their pricing. So this was something we also worked with Guidehouse. When Guidehouse came in and helped us with the ARPA auditing and allocations. So they've helped us create a new process too, or we can even expand this where we reach more firms, whether they're Akron firms or their surrounding communities, which actually has proven that we are saving some money and we are spreading, we're spreading these jobs out over different firms, whether they're really small or they're the larger firms. So that's what this legislation will allow us to do. And we think that it's just getting more companies to bid on our jobs has been very successful.
All right, thank you, Chris. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? All right, any other council members online with us? All right. Chris, consent agenda?
Yes.
Committee?
I'll make a motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to our final piece. Sarah, if you could read that in, please.
Sure. Item number 17 is a resolution approving and confirming the appointment of Gabriel Forte, Brittany Robinson, Patrick Selman, and Jackie Raschuti, and the reappointment of Patricia Wyatt as members of the Akron Tree Commission and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Luddle?
You're going to handle this one?
Thank you, Chair Kamer and the rest of the committee. I believe several weeks ago, a piece of legislation came before you to expand the number of members on the Tree Commission. Councilman Fusco brought that forward. Today's legislation is intended to appoint new members to fill those slots. So yes, the names you should have before you are Gabe Forte, Brittany Robinson, Pat Selman, and a KAB representative, which will be their executive director, Jackie Raschuti. Additionally, we are also with this legislation reappointing an existing member of the commission whose term is up. That's Patricia Wyatt. And I'll say a few things. I want to thank Councilman Fusco, who serves on the commission as vice chair, and our commission chair, Sarah Vredenberg, who I see here in the audience, for working with me on this. The Tree Commission's purpose is to support Akron's urban canopy through education, promotion, public outreach with respect to trees. And I think we collectively feel like more people, more hands, new energy, varied backgrounds, that will all help the commission to serve that mission. So appreciate the collaboration, and that's all I have. I'll take questions if there are any.
All right. Thank you, Casey. I appreciate that. Mr. Fusco, I know you brought in a piece a couple of weeks ago. You have anything to add to this? I know you're on the committee.
Yeah, thanks. Just that we had discussed, met with these folks, and they will bring a new life, if you will. We're looking at re-engineering the commission, and after a couple years now, where we want to be down the road. There's a lot of initiatives in our city, which is great. The Keep Akron Beautiful folks, they're up and running. We have folks up in the water distribution who has a great program that they've put together for us with some grant funding. And Sarah Vredenberg is here, Pat Selman also. I think that's not a new name to these chambers. And really excited about where we're going to be down the road. We're going to reevaluate the ordinance itself, which is about 7 or 8 years old, I think. And before that, it was 50, before it was visited. So we are revisiting it now. And I don't know if the chair, Sarah Vredenberg, has any comments or not, but she's here, and she's shaking her head. But we appreciate her leadership. And if council, consent agenda is probably okay on this,
I think
that's
so.
fine. Yeah, or if there's any questions, thanks.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Questions or comments for Casey or Councilman Fusco?
I just had one question. What's the full term of the appointment?
I believe it's 3 years.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. One last thing, and that is there has been a bit of press of late around this tree commission, and we've seen a growth in interest. There's been quite a few folks who's emailed us and expressed an interest to serving, which is fantastic. I think what we're looking at, we don't want to make any announcements or anything. This is not that official, but it may be like a Friends of the Tree Commission or something, whereas we could get folks involved more and more with the city and our tree planting plan and everything that we're up to. So but it's great to see all the interest that we've received. Thanks.
Super. Any other questions or comments from anyone in council chambers or online with us?
Mr. Chair, I would like to add to Casey's comments, just to thank Sarah Vredenberg personally. I mean, she has been a driving force since we started this. Sarah Beviano, she's on our committee, Francia Lash, as Councilman Fusco. So I really appreciate all their help on this. We now have we've had one arborist on staff, we now have 3. So we expect to really grow this program with our street trees and possibly with our Acorn project and growing our own trees. So we're really looking forward to this program really expanding. So I want to thank everybody personally that have agreed to serve on this committee.
Sounds good. Real quick, any other questions or comments? Okay, I want to make sure I look. All right. I think I heard consent's okay or suspension of the rules.
You know what, these expire today, so could we suspend the rules, sir, please?
Absolutely. Committee.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. That is all we have for pieces. And I also want to say, I know, Chris, before you walk away, LEAF program, I really appreciate what you've done in Ward 7. I'm sure some of my colleagues had some of their awards done already, and some haven't. But I just wanted to say thank you so far. They did a pretty good job.
You're very welcome, and hopefully Mother Nature holds out and we get them all picked up. I know there's a little snow for Wednesday, but we'll be prepared if that does happen.
All right. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Awesome.
You got us at the end.
Yeah, I know, that's fine.
Our next committee today is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hannah, and Davis, and we'll get started in just a moment here. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started with the Public Safety Committee. Again, those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hannah, and Davis. We do have all committee members present except for Councilwoman Davis. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Clerk Viviano. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order. We have previous minutes to approve. If I could get a motion.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have the Citizens Police Oversight Board here before us today. I was approached and asked, they wanted to give a presentation regarding their annual report. and also to be able to meet the new deputy auditor. So I see, Coach, you're here. You're going to start us out today?
Yes,
Boyd?
sir. Yes, sir.
All right, you have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're really humbled and honored to present to you all this afternoon. I know that we maybe emailed this a little while ago, but I think everybody has received a copy of our first annual report that has come from our Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board. We are really, really excited about what we as a board and also as the independent police auditor department has been able to accomplish in this year. And today, I'm really glad and honored to be able to have my vice chair with me, Ms. Donzella Anaskevich, also Mr. Bob Gippen, who chairs our governance board where this was produced, and also our independent auditor, Mr. Anthony Fennell. And so today we just want to present, just give you a high level review of our annual report, give you an opportunity to look through it. But also we would encourage any questions that you have for us as a board or to Mr. Anthony Fennell or our department. We really want to hear that feedback from you today as much as possible. And also if we can't get to it today, I think you all know how to get in touch with us. So again, thank you so much for your service to our great city. And right now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bob Gippen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, committee members, I want to echo Chairman Boyd said. We are very appreciative of the support we've had from council as well as the administration. It's been about a year and a half now, I guess. Nice way to put it is, I think you all know, is interesting. It was very interesting, particularly the first 6 months plus. The support that we had from council, particularly with our rules and with the approval of our budget, for this year, really made a huge difference to us. Particularly coming when it did, it was a real plus in what had been a difficult year. So, thank you for that, and thank you for your continuing support. The good news is that the annual report that you have before you and what we have to say to you this afternoon is a very good story and I think a story of some success. I'm not sure that, sitting here a year ago, if we'd been doing this, I would have expected, or any of us would have expected, I think, that we'd be able to be coming to you now, a year later, with a pretty positive report. It's not to say that we don't still have issues that we need to deal with, and probably will always be dealing with. But I think we got through our growing pains in the end surprisingly well. And that we've been actually been able to do some things that that we're certainly proud of, and we hope that you would agree with us that these are things that fulfill what the voters at least wanted us to start to do. So we're happy where things are. If I could just touch on the major things that occurred that are reflected in the report with more detail. The key things, of course, kind of a little bit going by time. The approval of our rules in the end. We had our differences about that, but I thought, and I think we all felt, it was a healthy process. It was how it was supposed to happen, which is we work through the differences we have. And come up with something that's acceptable to everyone. Was in the end acceptable to the FOP as well, and a good president of the FOP, Mr. Lucy, is here this afternoon, and we appreciated their support for the final version of the rules. The budget, of course, was a big thing. We were frankly, even though it went very smoothly, so we were all sitting here that afternoon, we weren't sure where it was going to go, but of course you were very kind to approve our budget as requested. Then the biggest thing of all, which was our hiring of Anthony Fennell as our auditor. As I think you know, largely because of Phil Young's unfortunate, unexpected health problems. He wasn't able to do the job past the first few weeks. So we were really without an auditor until February of this year. But we were very, very fortunate in Mr. Fennell's wanting the job. It fit his own career path and sense of things. And the job came open, and he applied for it. And we were very pleased that we were able to hire him. And he'll speak a little bit more, I'm sure, about it. But I can say personally, I think I speak for my colleagues, he has exceeded our expectations. And our expectations were pretty high. I mean, he brought arguably the best level of expertise in the country to this job. And we're seeing the benefits of that. So that was certainly the most important thing that we were able to accomplish. And then he, very quickly picking up the ball and running with it and beginning to really do the job. And there was very little, no learning curve. And it didn't take him very long to kind of get the lay of the land here in Akron and begin to really do the work of analysis of use of force incidents, recommendations concerning them, and some broader policy recommendations. So that was we in Akron, I think, are extremely fortunate that this worked where he wanted this job, and we were able to get him as our auditor. And a few months later then, and this was then Mr. Fennell's piece of it, although we approved the hire, but we also have a deputy auditor now, Keisha Myers, who is local. So she brings her level of experience and knowledge of the community to the job. And it's only been a few months, but and Mr. Fennell would speak to it, but certainly as we on the board see it, very good match and very, very good hire. Again, very fortunate she wanted that job, and it appears it's working out exactly as we hoped, that there's a real team that's formed, and also includes Shannon Thompson, our administrative assistant, who has been here a year, and she was carrying the ball all by herself and just did a terrific job kind of keeping things afloat. Beyond that, the other, what I guess we would consider to be major action that we were able to take is that we made a set of recommendations to the administration for the collective bargaining negotiations with the FOP. By the time we needed to do it, we had enough information, and Mr. Fennell being on board by that time certainly helped, that we understood what we thought, significant recommendations that we would make in the hopes that the administration would seek to obtain those in the bargaining, and would ultimately, if they were obtained, would be approved by you in the final agreement. Just to kind of touch on the major recommendations that were included in that. The first one, and probably the most important by far, is that we recommended and continue to recommend that there not be arbitration where discipline, typically in these situations, terminations, arise from use of force or from citizen complaints, but use of force is the major one. We think that that change would be extremely significant and would, establish a difference of tone, different ability on the part of the chief and the mayor, to, particularly as to use of force, begin to get the outcomes that they should get. And we have a situation, of course, right now, where an officer who was terminated by the chief and the mayor is arbitrating. And we don't know what the outcome of that will be, but there is certainly the possibility that he would be reinstated. So that is our primary recommendation, that not for everything, but that for those disciplinary matters, that there not be arbitration. And we hope the FOP may see the wisdom of that change, even in terms of their approach, because we know they, maybe more than anyone, want the department to be the best that it can be, and we think that'll be important. We also have made the significant recommendation, we think, that the chief have more ability to make patrol assignments. Now other than new officers, it's on the bid system, the seniority bid system, which by and large is as it should be and is typical. But as we see things in the city, the ability of the chief potentially to assign more experienced officers, to districts and shifts where there is more need for greater expertise and experience, we think that would be of great benefit. And so that's another recommendation that we've made. We made several other recommendations, but they're more specific in their nature. I don't know if they're in the report, but you, I think, received our recommendations. And I'd be happy to speak to them, or all of us would answer questions. But those were the two major items. I should add that Mr. Fennell, within the week, I think, he saw another, something else in the collective bargaining agreement concerning, it's a little technical, but it has to do with the time frames for disciplinary actions. And he made a set of specific recommendations to the administration to correct those, which should again make the process move more smoothly. In terms of what we are involved with now, and there will be, it will change over time. But the things we're involved with now primarily, we want to do much more with our community outreach. We just, frankly, we did not have the bandwidth, up over during this, 18 months for the most part, to do everything we might have wanted to do and do want to do. But we think we have the bandwidth now, and we're going to be doing more and more of that. Some of it is just going where we're invited. Councilman Bolden was kind enough to invite us to the 8th Ward meeting Wednesday night. We actually changed what would have been our board meeting so we could accommodate that. We hope that the rest of you, for your own ward meetings, would be kind enough to invite us to attend. We would very much appreciate the opportunity. And other groups, but we're also going maybe once a quarter, see how it goes, but we're going to try to initiate our own events, out to the community to be talking with them, getting their concerns. Related to that, the other sort of major initiative that we've been actually doing it probably for a year, is looking at the use of force policy in the city. And we've been just quietly doing some work on it, primarily looking at what exists in other cities and there's a lot of writing on it, what best practices are continued to be. NACOL, the organization that Mr. Fennell is the president of, actually has some resources about it. So we've been looking at it that way. And that's intended to be the focus of our community outreach, give it some focus and begin to both provide some explanations to the public of what the use of force policy is now and how it operates, some thoughts about it maybe, and get feedback. How do folks in the community, how would they like to see officers responding in the difficult situations that where use of force is called for or arises? What are their expectations? And we're very, very glad that the administration now has taken up that issue. We've certainly they've let us know that we're going to be invited to be part of the process, which we very much welcome and we're looking forward to. They're doing what they're doing. We're going to continue to do our work so that hopefully what we can bring to the table will be thoughtful and will be recommendations that have some basis. As I say, we're feeling pretty good about where we are somehow after this year and a half, and we hope the momentum will continue. We're certainly going to be continuing to work hard as we've worked, and we're glad we are where we are. And others want to speak to it, Mr. Fennell, and otherwise we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Fennell, did you have some comments?
Thank you, everyone. Right now, I really would like to reserve the time to be able to address any and all questions that any of you may have. Again, as Mr. Gipp and Mr. Kemp has stated, much of the information is in the report of the general overview of what we've done, but I'm sure you have some specific questions that you may have, so I'm here to answer those questions.
Thank you. We have any questions from any committee members? Mr. Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you talked to the FOP about training for de-escalating certain situations when they go into a situation where they might be able to de-escalate the situation as opposed to using force?
The short answer is no. I have not talked with the FOP about de-escalation or training, but I did, one of the first things I did when I got here was enroll in the Akron Police Department Citizens Police Academy. So during that time, I had an opportunity over a period of 8 weeks to spend a lot of time with members of the training staff. And Mr. Hanna, Mr. Fusco was part of that training as well, so they can attest that I did pepper the staff with lots of questions, both during the class and even during our breaks, about their training opportunities. I haven't had an opportunity since our time at the academy ceased to circle back, but one of the things in talking with Chief Harding is that I want to meet with the training staff and set up an opportunity, particularly during 2025, to really do a review of the training. And I anticipate that as we do our use of force review starting sometime next year, that the training piece will also be a part of that. So I do look to have those conversations, look at the overall training when it comes to use of force and defensive tactics, but training in general as we work on the use of force policies.
Mr. Lombardo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got to be honest with you, because my blood is about boiling right now. And the reason is it's on record. Issue 10, I wasn't a big fan of. And of course, that's what the people wanted, okay. But you were a police officer, Mr. Fennell, and were any of you police officers? No?
I'm a federal investigator.
Pardon me?
I'm a retired federal investigator under the United States court system.
Okay. All right. I just see that all these situations that we have, and I'm certain I'm not even close to a police officer, so I'm not in that field at all. But I would think de-escalation is part of their training. But I just see that all these situations happening that, these audits come out and, objectively reasonable or all these. Is it justified or not justified? Can you use just those words like this was justified, this wasn't justified? I think that would clear things up for me. But anyhow, you know, these situations, they haven't, and the review comes out, well, you know, it's not reasonable at all. So it just throws gas on the fire for the city. It just throws gas on the fire. And here we, you know, as council, mostly, I guess, I mean, and a lot of citizens, we stand by our men and women in blue and all our safety forces, because, you know, there's a lot of anger out there, I'm sure, and you know, we need them to protect us. But I don't know how this stops to have a more working relationship. I think sometimes your reviews come out without even going over that with our chief. But you know, and I know we have another councilman on Zoom there, but he had said that, you know, at one time, you know, when's this gonna stop? Like, when are these situations gonna stop? You know, he went over about several things. When's it gonna stop? When it's gonna stop? I know when it's gonna stop, when people start listening. Right? I mean, if we have people out there that respect authority and you know, play by the rules, there's no problem. But if not, then the officers have to do what they're trained to do and, you know, de-escalate the best they can, and you could take it from there. But I don't know. I just don't know. I went through the police academy too. And again, as I'm an accountant, when I saw those situations, I was like, I picked up the first weapon that they had there, whether it was the right thing to do or not. Remember the guy that walked through the door and he just had a broom, right? You know, but in the heat of the moment like this, you got people out there with, you name the ammunition that they have. And it just seems like, well, we're only allowed to carry butter knives.
May I respond, sir?
Sure.
And first, let me apologize. I gave you the wrong last name. I knew who I knew who I was talking about, but I gave you the wrong last name.
Busco's behind me. That's
because
okay.
We spent a lot of time together at the academy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you made a couple of points there that I'd like to address. Since I've been here, started March of 25th, 1980. Gosh, seems like 2024. I started police department in 1989, so it's there. But I've looked at over 100. I've looked at 107. I've completed 107 use of force reviews, and 93.4% of those reviews I have concurred with the supervisor or the OPSA's investigation. Out of those other remaining reviews, 4.7 of those, or 5, total of 5, I have concurred with partially of the findings, but I've also had recommendations. And then there's only been 2 so far, I think it's 2, yes, that I've totally disagreed with. So it's the 2 that really gets everybody upset, but it's those 2 where there's, in my opinion, very flagrant violations that go against the policies and practices, not only of APD, but of constitutional policing in this country. So that's what I address. But out of that, I don't see those 2 as adding flame to the fire. I believe, you know, they are, because I do go against what the police department says, they do create that buzz, they do create that concern. But what it also creates is opportunities that the council nor the citizens of Akron have ever had, which is to have that open dialogue or opportunity to have that dialogue with the police department and the administration to talk about these issues and try to reach some kind of, get to a place where not only are the policies based off the Graham standard and off other laws, but they're also based off the community standard. What does the Akron community want to see out of their police department? They've never had really that opportunity to have that deep dive voice because they haven't received responses to the level we've received back from the city or from the police administration. So right now, we've got those opportunities. You know, right now, Chief Harding and I, we meet frequently. You know, I meet along with Mr. Kemp and other members of the board with the mayor and with other city leadership. And we're here today meeting with you guys. So we're creating, I believe that what I'm doing and what the office is doing is creating those opportunities for collaboration, for policy development, because now we're going to look at the use of force in its policy in its totality, and all types of levels of uses of force we're going to take into consideration. We're going to talk about the training and look at that. And it's not just going to be me. I was on the phone earlier this morning with a national expert, one of many that are being sought to come in and look at what's happening here in Akron. So, and not to look at it in a punitive manner, to look at it in a way that's going to help the department, help the city, and also help the community. So, you know, as a former police officer and as a person whose child is a current police officer, I get it. I have had to make those split-second decisions. I've had to make decisions where if I did not act and react in a very swift, harsh, and decisive manner, either my life or someone else's life might be taken. But I also had to do it by the rules, and I also had to do it without, or let me put it this way, without any intentional bias, because we all have some level of bias that may inadvertently play into decisions we make. But never once did my use of force on anyone, no matter how severe it was, because I was upset with them or because, you know, anything other than they were creating this situation. But then you also made another point, that all of these uses of force and all of these actions are just because people don't listen or do what the police say. And to me, this is my professional opinion, that is a very superficial response to those actions. Because oftentimes, and what I've seen in the last few months, on the ones, particularly on the instances where I did not agree with the uses of force, the officers reacted very quickly, almost too quickly. And if you slow down in that moment, and if someone slows down, either the person or the officer, and we're asking our police officers to be professional, regardless if it's Akron or Cincinnati or DC or wherever, we want our police officers to be professional. So even in the heat of the moment, you have to be able to justify why you do what you do. So you have to be able to observe as much as possible and take that in. And I'm not seeing that in these instances. I'm seeing a very quick reaction and then a justification afterwards in some instances.
All right, let's use this analogy. You've watched NFL football, right? Baseball, whatever. And they've got all these replays at every camera angle, and they slow things down. And I'm sure sitting on your couch, not you, but anybody, me, how could that ref miss that call? It was slowed down. What? He should have got it. Well, yeah, when it's slowed down, but in the heat of the moment. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it could be, you know, you want to go home at night, same thing with the officers.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, just listen. I mean, I don't know how we can get that message out to the community.
Well,
but
and we
that's what I'm talking about. I mean, have I broken the law? Sure. I mean, speeding tickets. What do you need, officer? My license? Here you go.
I think again.
No problem. I go home at night, everybody's safe.
I think again, we're talking about a segment of the community that's never been given that benefit of the doubt. You get pulled over, yeah, you'll say that. I get pulled over in one of the cars that I may drive, and I still have that in the back of my head as a retired police officer. And the elephant in the room is because you're a white man, I'm a black man. That feeling is there. And so just to say, just listen doesn't always work. That's why we do have to have the community engagement and very intense community engagement, but it also has to work on both sides of the fence. And somewhere along the line, and I've seen this in my police career as well, I will be the first to admit, as an early young officer, I got caught up in it as well. But I had to realize these folks, everybody in this community is not bad. Everybody in this community is not out to harm me. Everybody in this community is not the enemy. Clearly, there are some. I mean, we have truly bad people out here, and that's why we need the police, and we need them to carry guns and use those guns when they have to. But everybody's not that. And so somewhere along the line with the training, the use of force, the policy review and civilian oversight, just to take a look at it, you know, we need those. You mentioned sports. How many calls have we seen in the last 2 years where someone in New York City in a booth overturned what's happening in Cleveland on the field?
Right.
And that's just football. Yeah. So if they have that much oversight,
But again,
and they're not killing people.
yeah, I know.
They're not, people are getting hurt, but people are getting hurt because that's the nature of football, you see? But here, we gotta have it. And it's not just as simple, you know, respectfully I disagree, it's not just as simple as saying just listen. Because sometimes there is a real fear in some people's lives that if they get pulled over, that's it. I get pulled over, I still have that in the back of my head, but I have also enough wisdom to know, okay, it's there, control it, and talk to the officer. And I know I'm not doing anything wrong. First thing I do when I get pulled over is say, officer, I'm a retired officer, I got a gun here. And usually I carry 2 guns in the car, and I'll tell them where they are. Mm-hmm. You know, one of them might be on me. If you ask me to get out, I got a gun on my left hip or my right hip, I got a knife in my ankle. But most people don't know those things.
Yeah.
If I may, can I say something, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I did work for Akron Police for 12 years when I was very, very young, a lot younger than I am now. And I'm going to say for the most part, I always bragged on the professionalism of the Akron Police Department. I always felt that they had very good police officers and excellent detectives. Excellent. But that was 40 years ago. Times have changed. We have brand new generation of police officers on all police forces throughout the country now. For lack of a better term, we have the Grand Theft Auto generation of police officers. So, and even with that, there are good cops, there are bad cops. There always have been because they're human. Before they put on that uniform, they are human. We are all human. And what I don't want to hear, or what I don't want is for us to sit here and skew the throwing gas analogy you gave on blaming, that analogy on blaming the victim. We're not going to do that because, as Mr. Fennell already said, in the heat of the moment, you know, things happen. But we do expect for our police officers to be above board. We expect for our police officers to be acting at a level of professionalism. We know they're going to face some hostility. We know they're going to face people wanting to fight them, and they have to do what they have to do. But what I don't want is for this conversation to be skewed towards blaming the victim, saying they just have to listen, they just have to listen, because it's a two-way street when you're stopped by a police officer. And if you're not an African-American person, you don't have the lived experience of racism like we do. You know, even myself as a black female. And now with the new presidential administration coming in, where he's already announced, you know, for 4 years now that he's going to give police officers immunity no matter what they do, we don't know what's going to happen from here on out. So I think it's real important for us to stay focused on what's important. What's important is safety of the citizens of this city and accountability from the police officers that are sworn to serve and protect this community. Black, white, green, blue, I don't care. They are sworn to serve and protect, and that's what we're going to be expecting for them to do.
Thank you.
Can I just add one? Mr. Lombardo, one of the community engagement.
Bob, before you get started here, please. You know, when we started this, to have this meeting today, I thought it was going to be more so like an overview. I felt that there would be some discussion. We have some other council folks that want to make some comment. I'm just respectfully asking if we can keep this somewhat brief. We have 10 pieces to come before us for budget, and it's supposed to start at 3 o'clock. So just being respectful of the next committee that's coming in. And so if you, briefly, and then I have 2 other council members that are.
Mr. Lombardo, one of the community engagement initiatives will be to put together the kind of work, particularly with young people, in terms of how to respond safely, properly to a police interaction. We got some very good folks that are willing to help with that.
Sounds good.
Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I am just very pleased that the Oversight Board is here, a part of the board. And thank you so much for stepping forth and taking on this challenge for us and doing the work that you have done thus far. As one of the petitioners of Issue 10, I certainly wanted us to ensure that we had a quality board and hire some quality people. And I think you have gone above and beyond, and I thank you so very much for that. Let me just say that I've had the benefit of attending your meetings. I've had the benefit of seeing Mr. Fennell in the community, talking at ward meetings. I've had the benefit of talking to Mr. Fennell and listening to the fact that he has done the work that we wanted him to do. Come in and look at the use of force incidents and review the cases. To hear what he just said about the high percentage of cases where he actually agrees with the officers, it makes me feel really good to know that we do have what we all expected to find. We have quality people out there working, and we have some, hopefully, few incidents. But let me just say a few things. That one of the things we really wanted when we started this process was for both the officers and the citizens to go home safely. And that is what we still want with this whole Issue 10. And I can tell you that this board, I am extremely pleased with the hire, Mr. Fennell. I am extremely pleased with how things are going. And I want to recognize what my colleague, Mr. Lombardi, has shared with us. And I appreciate you, Phil, for being honest, because I think this is what we need, not only for the Oversight Board to deal with the officers that are training and examining these cases of use of force, but this council, we need to engage in our own understanding of racial disparities, racial differences, the whole thing of how we all interact racially and the way we see the world differently. And I think what we are finding out here is that this Oversight Board is doing the work that we wanted them to do. Come in and look at the cases, come in and review the training, give us some good recommendations. With Mr. Fennell being in the position he's in, as overseeing all of these groups that are coming forth as independent groups to look at police officers and the use of force, and having the connections he has, I think he can bring in some good quality people to help us with what we want to accomplish. And again, kudos go to the board. Thank you, Mr. Gippen, Kemp, Donzella, and Mr. Fennell for the work you're doing, because this is what we need. This is what we have to continue to do. And Mr. Fennell is an independent auditor, and I think we need to remember that. And that is what we wanted, someone independent of the law department, the police department, and for him to give us his reviews. So thank you for the quality of the work that you're doing, and thank you for this exchange.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I really appreciate this. I just want to speak to the board, the oversight board. I really wish we didn't need you guys. I really wish that for our citizens in our city. But these 200,000 people in our city, thank you. I thank you. I am so happy that you're there to keep accountability, keep transparency. Like I said, I wish we didn't need you guys at all. But I am glad that you're there. I'm glad for the work that you're doing. And what gives me even more satisfaction today is the fact that you guys said that you've worked with the union to achieve some things. That is mind blowing, and that I am so happy that that's taking place. That you guys are achieving things and being able to work with the union and get things done and passed. Unfortunately, like the young lady mentioned, being Black in this city, it's a totally different feel when you get pulled over. I just wish my colleague, Mr. Phil, would understand that. It's so much more than that. To see my 23-year-old get pulled over, he went to school with your son. It's a totally different experience. He carries a firearm. He has to then give his firearm to the police officer because they don't feel comfortable why they run his license and license plates. That's where did they do that? What do they need his gun for? I mean, he's registered. He's done nothing wrong. A traffic ticket. I'm going to take your gun and put it in a car while we do this traffic stop because I don't feel comfortable. This is the reality. And it's unfortunate that some folks, we really like going back to Miss Amobian, we really need some training. Folks really need to have their eyes open. But I won't take up too much more time. Kudos to Fernell. Kudos to this whole group, Kippen, all of you guys. I wish we didn't need you, but I am so thankful and so blessed and so happy that you're here. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for your service. Probably heard that. But thank you, especially putting on the uniform. Thank you both for that. Certainly appreciate it. And obviously, those of you who've chosen to practically volunteer your time for the city for this, certainly appreciate just a couple quick things. I'm going to try to stay on point. In what way are the, especially, and I know it's probably thinning out, but in what way is it determined like what is going to be reviewed? How is that? How do you come about that?
Well, it's very simple. I review all uses of force that are completed. So those use of force investigations that are completed by APD. I had to make a determination as to, when I came in, I had roughly, it was well over 200 kind of sitting in the queue.
Right.
So I had to make a determination of, have a start date of actual reviews where I'm gonna make recommendations. Now, the other ones from 22 and 23 and the first quarter of 2024, we still have those. And my plan, I've currently am looking to hire interns, criminal justice interns, who are part of a criminal justice program through Akron Public Schools. Mm-hmm. So I just reopened that posting today, had HR do that. And I'm scheduling to speak at their classes over a 2-day period in the upcoming week to tell them about criminal justice and specifically about oversight in that position. So I'm looking to get at least 8 interns to help us take the data from 22, 23, and first quarter 24 and put that in a workable format. We still want to analyze all of the data, but I don't plan to do an actual review of any of those because we just don't have the personnel and the capacity.
Gotcha. And by the way, I'm Fusco.
Yeah, I know.
Lombardo.
I think I looked at you, and but you know, you get that kind of brain.
That's okay. It's okay. Not a problem. Anyways, no, I just curious because it seemed the one on page 1 that fields that particular one there, I was just curious, like, what is the best practice and such, whereas it seemed as though it was still fairly fresh out there, and your finding came very quickly over and above everything. And I don't know. I don't know the workflow. I don't know any of that. But it just, for me, it just seemed as though even before, and I don't know if APD had already done their internal stuff and this and that, and and I don't know if that skews things because you don't know where it's going to go. If it's a jury type situation or how that fits with everything else in terms of the judicial system. But it just seemed as though that was a rather quickly moving investigation on your part.
Well, yes. Again, it was in my queue, so to speak, when I first got here. It was the use of force that had already been reviewed by APD, and I don't begin a review on any incident until APD has finished. My job is to look at their investigation, look at their processes, and if I concur with what they did. I don't do necessarily an investigation of my own. So I'm looking at their process and whether I concur with their findings and their process or not. This case, I received public inquiry about it.
Okay. So
various people, I believe I was contacted by the media and had initially gotten here and started going out into the community, and people from the community were saying, hey, have you looked at this? And this is, and when I reached out to APD, they said, oh, we finished the investigation, so they sent it over. So again, being here and just trying to get my feet wet and not having a whole bunch to do, but it's like, okay, well, this is the first case, I'll take a look at it, and so being able to devote the time to taking a look at it, I was able to move on that rather quickly. Now, with respect to whether a case is in the criminal process through the criminal courts, I don't consider that at all. I mean, there's various stages, but how I respond and how I move has no bearing on that. It's totally independent of whether it's a criminal investigation. The only time it's dependent on that is if it's an officer-involved shooting or a critical incident, DCI is involved. But if it's just APD, I don't have a bearing on how the criminal case is going or even consider that.
Thank you. No, and this is the kind of exchange I believe we have to have in order for us to learn from you and you to learn from us. And so this is a great exchange. Thank you. One last thing, if it's okay. And that is, it hurt, and forgive me, but there's the arbitration recommendation, I guess, and I don't want to get involved in that negotiation piece. That's not our lane. So we typically stay out of it for good reason. But it was recommended, I understand, that there be no arbitration whatsoever. I think that's what I heard. I'm not sure.
On where the disciplinary incident involves use of force or a civilian complaint.
Then who ought to be the arbiter if there's a disagreement?
The mayor in the end.
And it stops there. So there's not an appeal process over and above that.
There is. It can be, and Ms. Matz might want to speak to this, but my understanding is that there is a right of appeal from an administrative decision by a mayor under Ohio statutes, although
I know the Ohio's,
but no, in those instances, other than there would be the right of court appeal under that statute, the elected mayor would make the final decision.
And that's final, and there's no place to go after that,
other than to court.
Court. Okay. And that has been in place for the arbitration piece for years and years, and it's recognized throughout. And so I'm just, again, trying to learn from both sides here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, I believe the critical piece to that arbitration is citizen complaints. So it's not complaints that say would be generated through the department or through the chain of command. It is citizen-generated complaints or external complaints that come from a citizen encounter. So it's not to say arbitration is to be done away with completely. It is that citizen-generated complaints.
Or use of force. Or use of force or use of deadly force.
Right.
So the citizen A citizen complaint can go to I'm confused. Where are we
Well,
going with this?
What's happened by definition is the officer's been disciplined, okay?
Right.
And in the end, by the mayor.
Correct.
And has a right of arbitration now.
Yes.
What we're saying is that where that discipline arises, and really we're talking about use of force or use of deadly force.
Yes.
But also where there's a civilian complaint, that would also fall under the non-arbitration provision. Now, other kinds of discipline, showed up late for shift too many times. There would still be a right of arbitration on those sorts of discipline.
Just trying to learn. Thank you. Citizen complaint, though, that would also, that's interesting. Thank you.
Councilman Bolden, since you haven't spoke yet.
I will be brief. I'm not on the committee, but I want to thank you for being here. Something you said that's very interesting, and this is my first interaction with the board and hearing what you're doing. So 107 cases that you looked at, and 93.5% of them have been fine. And when you break it down, only 2 of those 107 have you basically said they were, that's a pretty good percentage, that we're doing things right. And I think that's maybe what we're missing, a lot of people missing. When something goes right, we assume that's the way it should be. Now, these are cases that are excessive force, that 2% can suddenly become life or death, can result in a death or serious harm. So it's very serious that we take these things seriously, and we look for ways we can retrain. We can do these things. I can't imagine the job of a police officer. I commend all of our officers and what you've done. That is a very, it's an insanely stressful job, and you have to make snap decisions on what is right or wrong. And sometimes those decisions may be made a little too quickly and may not be the right ones. But we need to be reminded of those, and I think this board is doing the right thing. I'm really glad to hear this. I had met with Mr. Gippen a while back, and he kind of explained some things on this and gave me a better idea of it. But the numbers don't lie. That's it. We are doing things right, but you don't hear about that. You hear about the things because it is a headline, and it is a major, very, very serious incident. So I appreciate what you're doing. I really do. I think this is good to hear, and I think more people need to know about this, but the story, good and bad, and how this works. So I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate this, and thank you very much.
And
Thanks. Oh, go ahead, Kate.
I'm sorry. Councilman Bolden, I appreciate you saying what you're saying, and I appreciate us being able to come and present today. I know maybe it wasn't always the way it was planned, Chairman, but I think that we're modeling something here that is really important. We're modeling civic discourse. Like, we can have these conversations. Doesn't mean we walk away and we all agree with it, but I think there's something that can be modeled. I think, to your point, Mr. Fennell brought in some measurements, right, that we're able to manufacture and to share, but also I don't want to lose sight of what we're able to model for our community, and that's just civic dialogue to say, hey, Councilman Fusco said, hey, I'm just trying to learn, and I think we're all still in that position where we're trying to learn and trying to understand what's going on, what's right. I don't think it's about demeaning anyone. And as Mr. Gibbon has said, I think one of the things as we talk about community engagement, what's important for us is that we want to know from the community, from City Council, from our police department, what would be good community engagement? What does that look like? What are some topics, some conversations that we do need to have collectively together? Yeah, we're going to have our ideas, but our idea may not be the best idea. It's just going to be an idea that we have. And so we want to encourage the community, the police department, FOP, and this council, if there's any thoughts that you all may have, what would be good civic dialogue and discourse that we can have as far as community engagement, man, we're all ears. We want to hear that because we want to collaborate as much as possible. We believe that's one of our responsibilities. How are we going to collaborate with these different entities within our city to show a little bit more of, I would think, some camaraderie amongst one another without just settling on we have to agree. We want to have and create as many possibilities for understanding as we can. So thank you so much, Chairman McKittrick, for your time and just giving us an opportunity to present.
Thank you, Coach. Are there any other council members that have not spoke yet before I go to Mr. Hanna? He says he's got a, you're good? No other council members, nobody online. I had a feeling that this was going to generate a lot of conversation. When I had a meeting with Mr. Gippen, we were discussing the fact of having an open forum at maybe at one of the CLCs or something, and I think that would be a fantastic opportunity to have these conversations and have an open forum like that. So hopefully, you know, we'll get that to come forward sooner than later. You have any closing remarks at all? If not,
Chairman spoke for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time coming down. I appreciate everybody's patience, and there's nothing else to come before public safety, so I'd like to adjourn so we could go forward with budget and finance. Thank you.
Budget and Finance will begin in just a moment. Thank you.
No, you're always pretty fast. That was really
Yep,
Ready to begin the Budget and Finance Committee. Again, those committee members are Lombardo, Amobian, Fusco, Boyes, and Bolden. We do have all committee members present except for Councilwoman Boyes. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I know she's coming. She just need to take a quick break.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I want to give her 30 seconds or something like that, because I should have took the break, but I didn't. Too much talking. Oh, thank you. Yeah, great, more water. It's 10. 10. Great. Okay, so I'd like to call the Budget and Finance meeting to order this afternoon. And with last week, well, we were off last week, but can I get an approval for 2 weeks ago meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Okay, several items coming before us. So we'll get started here with the first one being an ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Peace LLP for the provision of professional legal services for the City of Akron and declaring an emergency. And our own Director of Law, Deb Matz, is here today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. The contract that we are authorizing with this law firm today is for general labor services. They help us with arbitrations, grievances, and a variety of different services. In fact, they're the firm that just helped us wrap up the Westlake arbitration. You may not be aware, but that was a full 4-day arbitration plus all of the preparation. So those can be fairly expensive. In the past, I know that we have not brought these matters to council, but it is this administration's perspective that you should be aware of what we're doing and what we're spending. And so that's, part of the purpose for this. So I am, at this point, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from our committee members? I see Councilwoman Linda Amobian. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deb, are these numbers, the 250,000, based on the previous contract, or is based on the work that they've done already, or is just a way of getting started for the contractual year?
So ultimately, as I recall, what this is an accumulation over time, so that when you get to the 250,000, it's all of the prior amendments plus the original service contract added up together.
So it's possible that we'll see this firm again for additional funds?
It's possible, but not likely. I'll be real frank. I've spending a lot of, I'm not personally doing it, my staff is doing it, but we're spending a lot of time and energy and effort training up staff members to be able to handle these kinds of matters without outside counsel. So ultimately, it would be my hope that these kinds of bills go down, and that if we need to use outside counsel in the future, it's more a matter of bandwidth than anything else, because I don't have unlimited staff hours. And so that's ultimately my goal. But until that time, and I'm hoping it will be in the near future. Until that time, we will be using outside counsel some.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
How quickly?
Well,
Well, I think we, hold on. I think we have a question here from our committee members.
You asked questions, how quickly do you need it? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
this is not a request for immediate passage. This is
Okay, put on consent.
consent. However you guys want to do it, I'm fine with that.
Thank you. So just my question being new, how does this compare with prior years? Have we paid this amount in previous years? It sounds like it's a not to exceed amount?
Yes, it is a not to exceed.
And is this the same firm we've used in the past, and is the cost the same?
Yes, yes. The hourly rate is the same, I will tell you that much, and we have been using them for a number of years in the past.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so is there a motion on the floor?
Consent agenda?
Consent agenda, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, we'll see that that's placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 2, an ordinance. This is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with GovInvest Incorporated for compensation management software and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler's only left standing.
Thank you. So I will hand it off to both Director of HR Montrella if she wants to speak on this.
Okay, very good. Montrell Jackson.
Thank you. I did also ask Chris Renninger to be present. I'm not sure if she's there, but this is a legislative request for compensation management software, which would automate our process for comparative analysis of salary studies. Right now, there's several of us that do it manually, where you actually call different localities. This contract will give us access to information across 10 localities that we pick, and it would be refreshed every month. Whereas now, we're doing it as needed and at least once a year across all the salaries. It's a 3-year contract request.
Very good, very good. We have any questions from any committee members or any other council members?
I have a quick question.
Councilman Bolden?
You mentioned that this would be with 10 municipalities. Is that what you said, that this is for just 10, or?
So we could expand it, and actually it could be more than just like municipalities. It could also be any other city or county or police jurisdictions. If we're comparing salaries for law enforcement, we would be able to access that information.
Other question I have, so you put in the 10 municipalities and we're locked into those for the year, or can we adjust them? Is it just a total amount of 10 that we're looking at that you can adjust?
So we can adjust those.
Okay, cool.
I believe the number is 400 classifications that we've included in the study.
Great. Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you. Good questions. What would be your pleasure for this ordinance here? Are you asking for consent agenda, or what's your pleasure here?
Consent agenda would be fine.
Okay. Can I have a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second? Second. From Mr. Fusco. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Consent agenda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Montrell. Our third item is an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $3,100,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of acquiring and equipping motor vehicles, and composting equipment, other equipment for certain divisions in the city, and declaring an emergency. Now, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the start of our 2024 various purpose note issuances. It is a combination of new money issuances and some refunding, as we anticipate taking out some of these notes to long-term financing when rates are better in the future. These amounts are determined by reviewing the activity in the capital projects in which the activities occur. The one before us for this $3.1 million is primarily a combination of street cleaning, new money, and as mentioned in the legislation, for the composting equipment for public works. These are ongoing projects across the board, not just this piece, that have been previously authorized by council either by the capital budget, grant requests, or operating budget requests. What we are doing with these notes is primarily refunding the city for the activity that has occurred, as we, as mentioned earlier, take it out to permanent financing. With this first one, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions from committee members? Councilman Fusco.
Well, that's why we kind of build this into our strategy with the ability to take it into a note. Hopefully we can wait for lower rates next year if that happens. Or if not, we can try, with this case it being new money, we can look at doing another note next year and rolling it forward.
Any other council members with questions? I don't see any. What would you like for this piece right here?
If we could get suspension of the rules, we'd appreciate that.
Suspension of the rules? Okay.
Suspend the rules.
We got a motion for suspension of the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Mobian. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Suspension of the rules. Our fourth piece is an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $3 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds and in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied to retired notes issued for the purpose of paying the property owner's portion of the costs of paving, grading, construction, reconstructing, and installing curbs, concrete sidewalks, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, and water mains, all together with the necessary appurtenances thereto to serve the residents of Good Park subdivision in accordance with a petition submitted by NDC Good Park LLC and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you again. So this one is actually a special assessment note that we're rolling forward for the Good Park housing development project. It is to be able to assess the homeowners in the future once the infrastructure is complete and the residents start moving in.
Okay. Questions from our committee members?
This is on the corner, Old Perkins Middle
Yes,
School?
it's the old
Great.
Perkins School property.
Drive past it every day. It's looking good.
Yes.
And what's your pleasure with this one?
Suspension of the rules, please.
Suspension of the rules? Okay.
I just had a
didn't
quick
see you. I'm sorry.
question. Am I understanding correctly that all of this will be covered by assessments?
A piece of this will be, this portion here will be assessed in the future.
Okay.
It would be to the residents at Good Park.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Suspension of the rules, you okay with that?
Yep.
Second.
I got a motion and a second for suspension of the rule. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Number 5, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1,700,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of the acquisition of certain real property in Coventry Township and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you again. So this is for the IBH property. A few years back, we bought that using 1.7 million note. If we were to sell the property today, we would use the proceeds to cover the cost of this note. But since it is not sold yet, we are anticipating rolling it for one more year.
Yeah, go ahead. Councilman.
So this is part of the JED. We entered into a JED agreement with Coventry on this piece and seen how we held it and all that.
Right, and part of the deal was we would sell the property, and that just has not occurred yet.
Yet. Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Very good.
Suspension of the rules, please.
Suspension of the rules, okay. Any motion
So
for
moved.
suspension of the rules? I got a motion. There's a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Suspension of the rules. Number 6, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $5 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of improving municipal buildings and facilities in the city by constructing, reconstructing, renovating, repairing roofs, remodeling, relocating, making site and other improvements, planning and designing facilities, and acquiring and installing related equipment, all as applicable, designated or to be designated by the Director of Public Services, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. So this is an annual note that we are taking out for $5 million. It covers a lot of the city facilities projects that you would see in the capital budget. A couple of highlights is this covers a portion of the Station 12 debt that will not be covered by Issue 4. It covers some renovations to Canal Park and costs of maintaining equipment in various city facilities.
Okay. Does this seem like, to me, it seems like this would be happening every year as far as, improving our municipal buildings and everything that goes on with our aging structures. Is it not like
This is. So what we do is we issue these notes in a series. So this is the series 2024 to cover activities that occurred this year.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Any other questions from committee members or council members?
Yes, please.
Suspend the rules, okay.
Second.
A motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, see that on the suspension of the rules. Number 7, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $5 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued to pay the cost of renovation of the Oliver Ocasek building for use as office facilities for the city and the state, and for use as the new Akron Municipal Court administrative facilities, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. So this is another note that we're rolling forward. This is the piece of the Ocasek building, the Akron Municipal Court administrative building, that was not financed from the DFA bonds. And so for that, we're looking to do one more, to roll it forward one more year.
You said this was for the piece not financed by the
Development Finance Authority of Summit County.
Okay. Any questions from our committee members or other council members? Would you like to suspend the rules on this?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Suspend.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Number 8, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $3 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of improving the city's municipal parks and recreational system by constructing, improving, and equipping parks and recreation facilities, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler.
So similar to the other city facilities, this is for to cover projects that have occurred within Parks and Recreation and that piece of the capital budget. This is new money that we're issuing for 2024, and we hope for we hope for better rates in the future with this one.
For better rates, okay. Any questions from our committee members or other council members?
Thank you.
And we have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Suspension of the rules it is. Number 9, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $40 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of various improvements in the city and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. So this one is taking a combination of 2022 and 2023 notes that we have issued the past 2 years in a similar fashion to this, and rolling them forward together as one for 1 year.
Is there any questions by committee members? All right. Would you like suspension of the rules with this too?
Suspend the rules.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Suspension of the rules. And then our last piece is an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $12 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of constructing, reconstructing and otherwise improving certain streets in the city and declaring an emergency.
So this is a new issuance for streets and our various projects to go on there. A piece of this is for actually the Good Park project as well, but along, not only on those lines, but it covers activities like East Market, the resurfacing program, and the concrete street repair programs.
So is there assessments that come with this also?
This one is not an assessment-based one, no.
Okay. Just all for the sale of the bonds?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any questions from committee members?
Suspend the rules? Yes, please.
All right.
Second.
Motion and second for suspend the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Very good. Suspension of the rules it is. So I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Get through all this. And with that, our budget and finance meeting is adjourned.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet in special session at 5 o'clock. Thank you.